Fox's Alert now. We are just getting word out of Texas that billionaire Ross Perot has died after a 5-month battle with cancer. Perot is perhaps best remembered as the independent candidate for president in 1992. Bill Clinton went on to win that election, but George H.W. Bush lost his re-election bid. Perot had just turned 89. The man at the center of all of this in those years was Ed Rollins, the campaign manager for Ross Perot, and welcome back.
Thank you.
Our conversation continues. It's the first time you met Perot.
He's a very charming guy. The great similarity between he and Trump, self-made businessman. What he didn't understand is the roughness, tough of politics.
He did not.
And once he started being scrutinized as a candidate, there was a point in time where he was leading all three. He was at 39% June 1st of the election year, and both Bush and Clinton were behind him. But once he started being scrutinized by the media, what have you, he didn't like it. Where in the case of Trump, Trump loves it. Trump gets in the fight and basically. But to show you the power of him, he had a 1-800 number, which is the state of the art. He had 6 million people call and volunteer to be a part of that. There was a phenomenal movement. And if he wouldn't have dropped out, I'm not saying he would have won, but he certainly would have been done better than the 19% that he had.
A wonderful family man as well.
Absolutely.
He had a son by his name, Ross Perot Jr.,
great
his
family.
oldest son,
Great
CEO of the company, Perot Group. He was asked recently in an interview to describe his father. He described him as a great family man, wonderful father, but at the end of the day, a wonderful humanitarian. He said, quote, every day he came to work trying to figure out how he could help somebody.
Well, he did that. He was extraordinary in the efforts that he made for other people, and both in Dallas and across the country. He was a great patriot and a great American. Again, politics wasn't his cup of tea, and he said to me one day, he said, "We don't want to run a conventional campaign." I said, "I don't care. I want to just run a campaign." He didn't understand the politics and the role of the news media, particularly. So.
You and I have debated this in years past.
Yes.
And let's debate it now again.
Good.
Did Ross Perot cost George H.W. Bush a second term?
George H.W. Bush was 60% of the country at one point in time was looking for someone new. Perot filled that gap for a period of time. Did he take votes away from Trump? Bush. I think he did, but I think at the end of the day, Clinton gained when Perot dropped out. Clinton gained, and there were four.
You've made the case.
I made the case. There were 4 million. There were 4 million Republicans who voted for Bill Clinton. Those 4 million voters, if they would have voted for Bush, who'd been the president, chairman of the party, what have you, he would have won. It wasn't Perot voters per se. What Perot did was create a distraction, give some time for Clinton to get his campaign together. But at the end of the day, he did not cost him the election.
For those tuning in now, Ross Perot, we just got word, has passed away at the age of 89. A family spokesperson has confirmed that after a 5-month battle with leukemia, he's passed away. He was diagnosed just in February. This was a quick battle that he had. He had a massive secondary infection the next month that nearly killed him, according to his family. He fought back, and in this description, he showed up at the office most days in his dark suit with the omnipresent American flag on his lapel.
He was a tough little banty rooster, let me tell you. He was as tough as anybody I've ever been up against. Oh. Didn't make my life miserable.
He was a very successful businessman and did a big deal with IBM in the late 60s. That really catapulted his business career and his personal fortune as well. Why then did he make the decision in the late 1980s that he thought, I need to be president because?
He didn't think Bush was doing the right things on the economy. He clearly thought the deficit was too severe, and he also thought that the Mexican trade deals were bad deals, and that he really tapped into the same group of voters that Donald Trump tapped into.
So the Mexico deals on NAFTA at that time, he didn't like it.
Didn't like it.
And this is a guy from Texas who would know very well what happens when you do business across borders.
Absolutely. And there was a little argument between he and the Bush family. I don't think it was personal as some people has made it out to be. I think he cared. And what happened is he'd go on television, go on the Today Show, go on Larry King, and he'd get all these people saying to him, "Run, you got to run, Ross. You're the kind of guy we need as a country." Very much like the Trump movement of
on the Larry King show. You remember the night he did the debate with Al Gore?
Sure.
It really spiked in the ratings.
Sure did.
At a time when CNN really had the field to itself in the early 1990s. Did Ross Perot embrace, or did he have a disdain for the media? and the necessities that were required.
He had a disdain for the mainstream media. He loved Larry King. He loved the Today Show. He loved certain people that treated him well, but he didn't like the mainstream media. And he basically, he could have captured them, but he wanted to basically do his own thing, didn't want to accommodate the press, didn't want to have press planes, didn't want to basically put out press schedules. And that's what did him in the end.
Ed, what was it like to work so closely with him?
He was tough. You know, he basically, he didn't understand politics, and he wanted results day one, and he was very tight with his money. He promised me he'd spend $300–400.
A billionaire.
A billionaire who he got on one of his jets, and he basically had paper cups. Promised Hamilton Jordan and I were the co-managers that he'd spend $150–200 million, but getting every penny out of him was hard.
Well, there's a reason why he was rich.
Absolutely, we worked.
Why did he seek your counsel at that time?
You know, I'd run Reagan's campaign, and I think for that perspective, you know, he saw me sort of as someone who wanted change. I was always kind of an outsider. You know, I liked the idea of taking on the Washington establishment. I had got a little disillusioned with Bush. I was the chairman of the Congressional Committee when Bush broke his tax pledge, and I thought that was a very sacred pledge.
But you stand by it today that you don't think Ross Perot cost him a second term.
I don't think he cost him a second term.
But you have numbers that prove it.
I have numbers.
And you've shown them to me in the past.
I've shown them to you.
You stand by them.
I stand by them, and I'll tell you the Bushes think I cost them the election, so I
know that.
Right. So
when you think about the late 80s and the early 90s, and you juxtapose that with 2019,
right.
How would a guy like Ross Perot do in American politics today?
If he would run all the way through, you know, could he be elected governor or senator or something like that? Sure. Could he be elected president? That's a little bigger jump.
So he could not.
I don't think he could be president.
But you talk about this bank of 6 million Americans. You do that at a time when you don't have social media. You can't recruit them on Facebook.
So, but let me tell you the great part of the story.
Yeah,
I went into him and I said, where are all those names? He'd put them on computer cards and they locked them in a vault. And I said, I need those names. I need to send the mail. I need to basically get people they've all volunteered and want to do something. We need to take action on them. He said, I'm not going to send them junk mail. And I said, it's not junk mail. It's a letter from... He had no understanding of politics. He had never had a PR firm in his company. He is instinctive. He was very instinctive. And he tapped into, very much like a Reagan or a Trump, they understood where the country was and where the disaffection was. But he didn't like politics, per se.
How would you describe his impact on politics today?
I think he proved that an independent can run again. I mean, I think the key thing is that 19% was a real campaign. That was a comeback, a 30-day campaign. You know, I dropped out early, and he dropped out the day after I left. And he went all summer, didn't campaign, came back in September, got into the debates, and obviously made a difference there. That's probably what cost Bush the election.
That was it?
Yeah.
That's what you think?
That's what I think.
Yeah. You wonder what a younger Donald Trump was observing from afar. He's a New York businessman.
Sure.
He's thinking,
sure,
he's looking at Ross Perot, and what's he think?
I think the same thing. I mean, I think he thought he could do it. He thought for a long time. You know, there's been this great untapped, you know, the Tea Party movement, the Perot movement, the Trump movement are all kind of the same element.
They all have the same thread that ties them together.
Which is sort of the anti-Washington, anti-establishment. So.
Representative for the family, James Fuller, describing Ross Perot's death here, 89 years old, died after a 5-month battle with leukemia, ran for president twice, 1992 and 1996, about which we are speaking now. In a statement, he says, quote, in business and in life, Ross was a man of integrity and action, a true American patriot, and a man of rare vision, principle, and deep compassion. He touched the lives of countless people through his unwavering support of the military and veterans and through his charitable endeavors. Talk a little bit about that.
He went to Annapolis. He didn't stay in the military, you know, served out his obligation. But you would think you'd go into his office, it was like the Annapolis Hall of Fame. I mean, he was always for the POWs. He basically would do everything he could to be supportive of the American cause. You know, there was a lot of contradictions in his life, but at the end of the day, he was a true American, loved this country deeply and passionately, and people loved him back.
Yeah. What were the contradictions, Ed?
The contradictions were he went in the Navy, but he thought he didn't want to stay. He went through Annapolis, but didn't want to make a career out of it. Wanted to get out. His obligation was 5 years. Wanted to get out after 2.5 years. Basically, you know, he liked to control things, and obviously as a young Navy ensign, you don't get to control a lot. So,
if he were to have risen to the level of president, what do you think his policies would have been? How do you think he would have changed America?
I think the budget would have been very, very important. I think the deficit was what he always talked about, and he thought we were spending way too much money.
Tough to do, even today,
no,
right?
Tough to do. And I think the key thing was very much like Trump. You know, he did not want to be a partisan Republican or Democrat. And the key thing was always how would you deal with a Congress if you didn't have your own party there? And that's where
tough to do also.
Tennessee.
Great reflection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rollins.
Thank you.
Awesome to see you.
Thank you. Take care.
We remember the life of Ross Perot. His family informs us he is dead at the age of 89. We will be right back.